So we're just going to start off with, you're from Barberville originally?
Originally from Candice.
Candice, just down the road from me.
Just down the road, yes.
Wonderful.
A farmer's daughter.
There you go, there you go. So if you just want to start, Lorna, wherever you feel God's really touched you in a mighty way.
Yes, I'm going to take you. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. Where's Ingrid? Thank you. The worship was beautiful, and it's like you know what I'm going to say. So much we sang about and worship about is my story. So thank you. And it's also just lovely to see so many people I already know here. What a wonderful church you've got here. It's lovely. Right. So I'm going to take you back when I was 26. So I had everything going for me. I had a lovely little boy of 3. He was just a little boy. And I was married, and we just bought our house, and all was going well, and I was pregnant. And however, the pregnancy wasn't going terribly well. And eventually, yes, I was diagnosed with preeclampsia and ended up going to Rigmore. And one night, my husband came just to see me. We had quite a few weeks to go. And yeah, I was okay that night, but he left me. And anyway, as the night progressed, things got really bad, and I started to see tremendous little stars, which I thought, this isn't right. And I rang for a nurse. I was in a room on my own anyway. And what happened next? The nurse came in, took my blood pressure, and she rushed back out. And then I seemed to leave my body. So I left my body. So I was sort of looking in the room looking in the room, and everything was going on down on the bed, but I wasn't in my body. And eventually I left, and I went down a tunnel of light. So I went down this tunnel of light. And it was the most beautiful feeling. Now, at this stage, I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I went down this light, and I wanted to go to that light. I truly wanted to go to that light. The feeling in my body was just like, all I can explain now was the fact that you had a hard day's work, and you wanted to just go into a bath, and that feeling of just complete peace, relaxation. There was just love. And this feeling of joy. It was beautiful. I wanted to go along this tunnel, but a voice came into the tunnel. All I could hear was a voice. There was nothing else, just a voice. And always, Lorna. This is the first time I heard this voice. Lorna, it's not your time. You have to go back. So I ended up back in my body, which was incredible pain. The pain, the feeling of the depth of weight on your body, and probably sin, was back in my body again. And I ended up all right, okay. I was in sorry, where was I? So yeah, I was in intensive care, and I was actually, it's strange. I was in intensive care, but I couldn't actually see, but I was obviously just hearing at this stage. So this is me coming back to life, and all I could do was hear. So I could hear the nurses around me and doctors. And, I could hear this lovely caring voices that while I was still lying in bed, really very aware, the last thing you lose is your hearing. So it's important when you're with people that they hear you, they still hear you. So please remember that one. So I could hear them, and there was just such loving voices. Eventually, now I can't give you time, because time is irrelevant in my story. I just can't give you that. So we'll just go on. I went on a little bit further, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And I spoke. I was able to speak to the nurses, and they were talking to me and telling me what happened, that I had a baby. They told me that I had this baby, and it was a girl, and I felt nothing. It's a terrible thing to say, but I felt nothing. I thought, how can I have a baby without even seeing a baby or feeling I had a baby? And I felt pregnant still, because after you're still feeling big. And I felt pregnant. I still wasn't able to move in the bed. I was all wired up. And they kept trying to make me happy and say I had a baby girl. My husband then came to see me. He was allowed to see me, and he was telling me he was very upset. And he said he didn't want to see our baby until I could see. So we could do it together. So we see our child together. So baby Valentine was in Skaboo, and nobody visited her for a wee while. Now, this is where the story, I'm not getting terribly, they're worried about me because I'm not improving. And I, deep down, couldn't understand. I just wanted to be back in that wonderful place. I can't explain it. I'm here with a child of 3 and a husband, and now told I have a baby. But heaven is so amazing. I wanted to be back in heaven. It's so amazing. So it's something for us all to really look forward to. This is nothing to what's coming. So anyway, I had this experience one evening. They couldn't get me to settle. Blood pressure was going scatty. They were worried about me. And this nurse came in. Something different. The person was, I couldn't even tell if it was male or female, but the person had a glow, they had peace, they were just unbelievable. I trusted this person, because everybody else, it was like, nothing was real. And she said, she said, what's wrong? I said, I don't know. They say I have a baby. I've never seen my baby. I don't feel like I have a baby. And I don't feel I want to go on. And then the nurse disappeared and came back with this bundle, this baby wrapped in a hospital blanket. I couldn't touch or move because I was still tied up in wires and things. But I looked at this baby and saw she looked like my mum. I couldn't get over it. This baby looks like my mum. She must be part of me. And it was the first time I saw my daughter. She became real. It wasn't just you have had a baby. And any mother that's had that, it's just a horrendous experience to feel that. You have to see your baby. And so this nurse took the baby away, and I fell asleep, content that this is real, I do have a baby. And next morning, in fact, the nurses, I was so excited. I said, thank you for letting me see my baby. And they kept saying, you couldn't possibly see your baby. I said, no. I saw my baby. I'm really happy. It's fantastic. No, you couldn't see your baby. You're in intensive care. and the baby's in Skaboo, completely different parts of the hospital. We can't, we will let you see your baby, but you haven't seen your baby. I thought, So then I spoke to my husband at the time, and he said, I think he just wanted to keep me happy and agreed that I saw the baby as well. So time went on again, and eventually I got strong enough, and I was taken in a wheelchair to, with my husband David, who took me in the wheelchair, and I was taken to, and we both went to see our little girl, who eventually we called Ailey, and of course she was exactly the same baby that I saw that night. It was the same baby, and I just knew it. I already knew it. A mother knows their child, and she was just beautiful. She was also suffered because, well, they had to take Ailey away from me because I was fitting while I was pregnant. She was damaged as much as I had brain damage as well. So I ended up with brain damage, and so did my daughter. So she had a weakness down her right side, and we had a fight on our hands. But we managed, we got better. I had this sort of strength and attitude thinking, well, it happened to me, didn't leave me. I was just trying to digest it, but I also had to decide I'm a fighter and I'm going to get better and I'm going to look after my children. And I had a little boy who didn't understand what was going on because he was only 3 and his mummy wasn't well, and he had a little sister as well. It was quite a big thing for him. And my mum and dad were amazing, and they were supportive 100%, while I was strong enough then to look after my child myself.
Were you aware at that time that God was in the midst of all of this? Were you aware of that?
No, not when it was actually happening, because I was so just living it, actually, just being in that situation. But when I had time, and there was lots of time in hospital, when I was still in intensive care, getting stronger, my mind was, I never, ever felt alone in that room. I just felt there was a presence all the time while I was in intensive care. And I knew I was somewhere special.
Right.
I knew it.
That's interesting, isn't it?
I totally knew it, and I knew that lady. It took me a while to figure out what happened there, but as time went on, I totally believe it was an angel that gave me the strength to live, because I was really ill. I was really ill. So that was me at 26. And Ailey, just to keep on the angel, because we've sung about angels, they're real. Ailey was a special little girl. She just was so innocent and sweet, and everybody seemed to love Ailey. And she had a special friend, and this was an invisible friend. And up till probably the age of 6, she had this special friend, and we never saw this friend, but it was a he, and he was called Tom. And Tom would get a seat, she would go and play with Tom, and Tom was just part of Ailey's life, and we just went with it. It was just beautiful. It wasn't anything. He just was there protecting her. And because, again, she had to fight the fact that she was very, very left-handed, but the right hand didn't work at all. I mean, it's like it didn't exist. And with lots of physiotherapy and help, she became that she could use it, but not as she should be. So even then, Ailey, I felt, well, I was being protected, and somewhere so was Ailey. Ailey was with angels, and they still were with her as a little girl. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Isn't that lovely? You know, that God is working in our lives, even when we're not aware of Him. Even when we're not aware of Him. And angels are there as ministering servants to us when we need them. So thank you, that's just lovely.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
And it's taken me a long time to tell people this story. I mean, it's a story, testimony. It's not something you can tell people. You know, it's not. And you have to watch who you tell, who you tell this to. So it took me a long, long time before I would ever tell this to anybody. It was very guarded. I told my minister, that was in Gordon Church, and it was, Graham Foster at the time. And he completely believed me. So then what happened, I knew that God was so real. You know, it's not just like going to church. I knew He was real because I had that experience more than anything else. That experience was like I kept looking for that experience, and that was my problem. I couldn't get that experience because I had it. So I was just like, you know, I became a member of the church. Sunday school, youth groups, you name it, I did it. But I just was not finding what I needed. And it went on for years, and I was excited, but I just sort of was looking, thinking, why are they not as passionate as me? It was just like, there's a living God, and He loves us, and He wants the best for us. And I just had years of, I'd sort of lost in the church a little bit, but I had this tremendous faith that there's something more than what I was gaining. Definitely. And I have to say that. And life went on, and I then went to all sorts of things. Maggie, I went to Clan, and we did all that sort of thing. That was amazing too, because then I found the Holy Spirit through Clan. And I thought, oh, this is what I need. And so I was doing this. But meanwhile, all this time and all this experience that we as a family went through, my husband was not a Christian. He was not a Christian. He just didn't feel it. In fact, if anything, I would say he was jealous. He was jealous of my relationship with God, and he just couldn't deal with that. So on Sundays, it was actually a day where we maybe had a tiff, because I would go to church and he would go to football, and we do not talk about church. And that worked. If I talked about church, it was like, don't give me that. So it was fine. He was a lovely man, everything else, but he wasn't a Christian. And so, you know, I became successful in my career. I was a university lecturer, and then I became in charge of a department, creative arts and hair and beauty. And I was there for many, many years. And our children grew up, got married, lived abroad. John, my son, my older son, then he got married, and my daughter got married in Edinburgh, and she also became a teacher of psychology and philosophy, and then she went down the religious and moral education. So she did that, and now she is guidance and counselling in Edinburgh. So they both very successful. And then my husband, eventually we got the garden centre, which was the Green Welly. And that was going to be our retirement. So when I finished up with my education, my teaching, we were going to retire and have the garden centre, as we thought.
And how long did that, from that time that you had your experience to this point?
Oh, it was years. It was like the wilderness, 40 years of all sorts of things. Actually being very much like a Martha. I'll do this and I'll do that and do this. There's so many things that you think will please God. And that's what I was doing. I was trying to please God by doing acts of, which is good. But I also was very much in the world, very busy with my career and my family and my house and the garden centre and everything else. And God maybe had a bit of that.
It's interesting that you mentioned 40 years of wilderness. You know, quite a few of us can identify with that.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, even when you look at the children of Israel in the 40 years, they weren't all worshipping gods and things. But they weren't fully obeying him either. You know, and there are seasons, isn't there, of that. But carry on.
So I was very into my career, very proud of my career, very happy and comfortable in the money I was getting. So I always worried, right? This is true, I always worried that, I'll never survive on a pension. And so, no, I'll have to work forever and a day. That was in my head. And anyway, the Lord does things, sometimes things that are very, very difficult. So we were on, this would be coming up 2020. I think that's the right year, 2020. My husband ended up with a virus in the heart. And at that stage, he was really, really ill, but they diagnosed that it was so much damage, but they weren't sure was the damage before the virus or would the virus cause the damage, but there was severe amount of damage. And as more tests and things progressed, the only thing that could save his life would be a heart transplant. And obviously, 2020 for everybody in this room will be also the year of COVID. And so he was diagnosed properly probably about January. And COVID came full blast about March, maybe. Yeah, right, March. I was in the university. Every time I was coming home from work, I never knew quite I was coming home to because David was really ill. And he could hardly, by this stage, our house and our garden centre are not far away, 20 yards away, but he couldn't walk. He had to take the car to the garden centre. That walking was just incredible. Walking from one side of our house to another was terrible. He was breathless. He was using sprays all the time. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And watching one that you love suffering so much, you don't realise it. You're living that nightmare, and you're watching the one you love dying. And the hope of having a heart transplant when COVID has just happened is going to be pretty rare. So anyway, we decided to go to. He needed his medication. And I don't drive, so we needed his medication, so we were going to take. He drove to Invergordon, said, I will go in to Invergordon to the post office, run in, get the medication, and we'll come back home. That was the plan. Knew that morning things weren't quite right. And I remember seeing him sitting in the chair, and sometimes there's no words to give somebody when they're desperately ill. And that morning I remember walking towards him, and I just gave him the biggest cuddle. I said nothing, and I just held him as if to say, I've got you, I know. And so this is us off to Invergordon. I go into the chemist to get his meds. I come back, he's not in the car. Well, where is he? He came out the car, and he went to Brasho's to get me a cake. That's my last cake. He went to get me my cake, and he came out of rashes. I saw him coming out, and he collapsed on the high street, flat out. Now, this is April. Everybody is nuts, crazy world of COVID. Nobody would help me. I couldn't get anybody to help me get him off the street. He was a dead weight. So I had to leave him there, and I took my jacket off, put it under his head. People would watch, but they wouldn't come near because they thought it's COVID. And eventually the chemist came out, gave him a spray, and he came round a little bit. There was a doctor from the Invergordon Hospital came just to see if he was okay, and they said, right, he needs to be taken into the warmth. But COVID time, everything's shut. If you remember way back in the early days, everything's shut. Even if you go into the chemist, you have to queue. So everything was shut. Everything was like closed doors. And the ambulance eventually came. The ambulance came, and out came, there was a man driving it, and there were two people, I don't know if they're male or female, two people in the back, dressed all in their PPE with guards and visors, and it's like he had the plague, all covered in their protective clothing. And they said to me, we'll take him to hospital, but you won't see him until he comes out, because you're not allowed to go to hospital. I said, fine, please take him, because at this stage he was suffering so much. And it was getting quite obviously there's this stages where I don't know how to cope with it anymore for him, for his health. And they said, we'll just take him and it's just going to be checkups. And I thought, fine. And then I got a phone call at night to say that they're keeping him in and just take a case with you that you won't be allowed in hospital, just take it to the hospital. So I took it to the hospital with my son that morning. So my son and myself went to the hospital, and this nurse was waiting for me, and she said, oh, Mrs. Valentine, yes, yeah, this is my husband's case. And they said, oh, no, we'll take you upstairs. And I thought, wow, they said I wasn't allowed in. And so my son was staying downstairs, and I went upstairs. And I was just chatting, how is he? And she was very quiet about it. And I then saw a doctor, and then the doctor, obviously, that told me that he took really bad, and he's dying, and you've just got time to say goodbye. So that's quite a hard thing to deal with. So I remember taking my Bible with me, because I thought, I've got my Bible, I'll just take my Bible. And I remember the hospital were saying, you can't take a diary in with you. I said, it's a Bible? All right, okay. Because I had to be gowned with everything as well, because it was COVID. So really what I discovered was this doctor broke all the rules. I wasn't supposed to be in. I did get in, and not only did I get in, but my son got in, because he knew that he was there. I said that he was waiting. And he got in, and we both got into hospital, and we were both able to say goodbye to my husband, and he didn't gain consciousness. But remember, I have a daughter, and the only way my daughter could say goodbye to her dad was on the phone. She was in Edinburgh. So she read John 17. And as she was reading John 17, he died. And he opened his eye, and a tear just rolled down. Now, I always believe, as I said, when I was in that situation, they hear you. And I just believe he was able to hear me while I was there, and my son. And we were able to say what we needed to say. And what I missed out about a month before my husband was died, he got a dream. This is really important. He actually got a dream. And he dreamt that he was in this beautiful garden. Now, my husband is 100% colourblind as well, may I add, which was a bit funny, but he was 100% colourblind, had a garden scent. He hadn't a clue what colours the flowers were. So he was in the garden. He in his dream, he was in this beautiful garden full of flowers. And he said there were colours. The colours were amazing. And I thought, really? And he said, and I saw and heard children playing. There's a lot of children playing. It was beautiful. And I saw this house. And he said it was just a lovely little house. And I just noticed, he said, I noticed I had a fishing rod in my hand. He loved fishing. And he had a fishing rod in his hand. And he was looking at this house, and his voice said, I prepare a house for you, but you're not ready yet. Now, my husband had never read the Bible. And he looked at the fishing rod. I can go fishing. In his dream, he could go fishing, which was his love. And so he told me this dream, and he said to me, what do you think of that? So I read John 17. What do you think of that? I said, I was in heaven. I said, I don't know, but what do you think? And after this is the miracle. After this, now this is the man that wouldn't have me talk about church far less anything else. He asked me to read, because at night his sleep was so laboured, he could hardly breathe because of the fluid in his lungs. He would say to me, read the Bible. And I read the Bible to him he couldn't read it himself because he was getting really weak. I read the Bible to him every night. And one day I decided to read something a bit easier, because I thought, well, maybe I'll read something a bit easier. He knew it. He said, that's not the Bible. I want the Bible. And I was just amazed, the transformation. And he spoke to the doctor, because I kind of asked his doctor, did you know he was that ill? And they said, well, we knew he was ill, but you never know when. And he said, but all I can tell you, Lorna, is that he wasn't frightened anymore. And I do believe it, because God, and this is the thing about our Heavenly Father, it's not our power. He is the one that saves. He is the one who will speak to you. Even to the most lost, he will speak to and find you in that place. And now, I mean, for me, it was wonderful to know that David was saved. And that verse when my daughter was reading was the verse that meant so much to us when she was reading it while he passed over. So that was just a time. The funeral was awful. Like, I'm sure other people have COVID funerals, when you just have to choose the people that can go. You're not allowed to touch anybody. You're not allowed to sit beside anybody. It was just quite a farce, really. It was just awful. It just didn't feel real. So to me, the death just became not real, because it happened so quickly. Funeral was quick. There was no real funeral. And then I ended up getting shifted over to Edinburgh to stay with my daughter. So I wasn't even in my house. So I don't think, I truly believe my husband was really dead. And time went past, and then I went back home, because I said I hadn't cried. And I felt, this is not right. I'm not grieving properly. And I said to my daughter, I need to go home to grieve and be in my home, my house, and deal with this. And which is what I did. But then...
Did you go back to work
Yes.
at this point?
Well, I thought work was... I just did everything wrong. I went back to work 13 days after David died. So So I was working online because remember the universities closed, so I could work anywhere. So I was actually writing new courses for the Scottish Office for the university at the time, because it'd be courses that would be all online. And so yeah, I was quite computer literate. I was able to do it all then. And so yeah, I came back home and I was doing that. But then, if you remember COVID, we were all in bubbles. So my daughter had her bubble, my son had his bubble, and my bubble was myself in my house. So nobody saw me. Now this is where things went wrong. So nobody saw me, they could hear me on the phone. You can be really happy on the phone. You can see everything's amazing on the phone. Deep down, I wasn't eating. I didn't take my meds because I was an epileptic. I didn't take my meds, not knowing I wasn't doing it. It wasn't deliberate, and I just worked and worked and worked because work was the thing that I was believed. If you work, everything's going to be fine. And a lot of people go down that road. Work, 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 work. You can't go wrong. But I just worked and worked until it got dark. I worked at my job and I was working in the garden centre trying to turn it around. Then I got the Blooming Gardeners. These are a company that they used to be an Isbel Rhine Centre. And they were put out because of COVID and cats. And they had nowhere to go and they asked, because my garden centre looked tired, it looked like it wasn't being looked after, could they come to it? And I thought, well, that's the start. I wasn't very happy about that because I thought, this is my husband's. But then I got a word, Lorna, you don't need it, give it to them. So I gave it to them. This is the Green Valley. I gave it to this company of who are for disabled and handicapped adults, that they could have it as long as they cared for it and they put on events. I was allowed to put on events. I don't know why I said that at the time, but now we'll know why. But at the time, I don't know why I said that. My head was everywhere, but that's what I said to them. And that was October. So David died April. This is October now, giving away the garden centre. And then I had a meeting on Zoom with my staff. So I was a leader. So I had about 20 staff, maybe about 200 to 300 students, still responsible, and they're all in crazy education because it was all online and you can't do art or hairdressing online. But we were trying to do that. And anyway, I had a Zoom meeting with my staff this morning, and all I remember was I was on it. And the next minute, obviously, I took a massive fit in front of my team online, which was if I didn't do that, I probably would never have been found, and I'm not sure what would have happened. But it happened. They called an ambulance, and I ended up in Rigmore having multiple fits, multiple. And again, I was back in that place again of not being, really not well. And what this time happened was brain damage. I lost memory, tremendous amount of memory, which was frightening because I had to be told again David had passed away. I didn't know so many things. I didn't know I had grandchildren. It was horrible. It was like a lost place. I had nothing. I was in a ward with, because I was in Inverness at the time, and I had a neurologist that was up from Aberdeen, and they dealt with this condition that I had, and I had lots of other things as well. Apart from 20 years memory loss, I also had this and a lack of ability to coordinate anything, problem solve. I couldn't retain information. So really, they were trying to get care package for me. So I was getting a care package because I couldn't to be on my own. So now here I am I gave away my garden centre. My husband died, not in that order, obviously. My husband died. Now I'm totally incapable of looking after myself, and I haven't got a job because I can't work anymore, and I have no income apart from what I'll have until they get rid of me. And I couldn't look after myself. I had nothing, absolutely nothing. A really scary place. And however, I never, at this real scary place, it's like God took everything from me, but gave me peace. I had this strange peace that it was going to be all right. It was going to be all right. And it's you and I, so it's God and me. That was it. That's all I had. And I stayed with my sister for a few months because they would not let me live on my own. And eventually I got stronger and better, and I had strategies to deal with my damage in my brain. And I think by this stage you might have got to know me. I don't know how we got to know each other.
I can't remember, but I remember having to help you finish words or sentences.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and the first time you gave your testimony, I remember you saying, make sure that you're sitting in my line of vision.
That's right.
So that if I get stuck with something, that you can help me.
That's right.
So it was very soon after you.
Yeah, because that was sort of the ways that the profession. I mean, I can't. The professionals were amazing, and really they helped me tremendously at that time. A lot of people are saying they weren't, but they were fantastic for me, and helped me through this terrible time. And when I was, and I did say to you, I was very work orientated, financially important. None of that mattered anymore. It's like it was just didn't matter anymore. My whole world had collapsed, but it was like it was God and me, and it was like, here we go, this is a new, and I'm going to make you new. And I believed that, because remember, I was back there at 26, he did it, and I knew he could do it again. But this was a totally new journey, and but it's complete relying on him and his love and the miracles of what he can do with faith, true faith of just believing it. And then I would take you to how the Highland Harvest, I'm allowed to go that way, yeah. Highland Harvest. So one evening I walked down to the field. The field is in front of my house. I've got two sort of biggish fields, and the sun sets in the west, obviously, but it, in a funny way, it reflects back to the east onto the sea, and you get a lovely glowing flow. And this evening I saw a light just come down from the sky, and I thought, wow, that's different. So again, I was on my own, and I was saying to God, just why, what do you want to do with me? What purpose have I got? And I walked to this light, and then I heard the voice again, Lorna, praise and worship me here. So this was in the field. I thought, what is that about? I can hardly look after myself. I've got to praise and worship you here. So I thought, well, did you just mean the two of us? I praise him. But he had much bigger plans. And as the days and the weeks progressed, the Highland Harvest was birthed from that vision. And the birth of that vision was that what I got from God, and it was always he led, it was his plan, he set it before me, I do not go before him, I don't flag behind him, I'm with him. And he's saying to me, speak to this person, speak to that person, and it was like that, it was crazy. But I disobeyed them, and people I didn't know, and they would all say, whether they thought I was this silly little lady, I have no idea. But they all said yes. They kept saying yes, even to the extent I managed to get ministers from the Alness and Invergordon area all to meet at Capstone. They all were, every one of them were there. And we met, and the Highland Harvest Festival was birthed, and the idea, and they all backed it. And the importance was that all churches were to be one. And that's the word I was getting from God, that they are one. They are one, united by the people. And so I took them to the garden centre, and they said, oh, no, just keep it in the garden centre. It'll be small, you'll get maybe 40, 50. Keep it in the garden centre, not in the field. I said, no, I was told to do it in the field. So I'm doing it in the field on the garden centre. And, doubt came, and I thought, well, gosh, will anybody actually come? And anyway, the first Highland Harvest was very successful, and we had, I would say, about 200 turned up. And Mary, your team were there in the field doing your ministry. Prophetic, yeah. And there's actually quite a few people here that were actually there, the very first one, which is wonderful. You know what I'm talking about. And then there was the second one, and it was even more. It just expanded even more. Anna sang at it. And then the third year, I was going to go ahead again. And I didn't feel God was leading me so much, but I thought, I'll still do it. It's the third year. And I started asking people, and they all said, yeah. And I thought, that's great. And then I got this word from God again. They don't do it. And I thought, no, I can't do that. I've asked too many people. This is nah. And then I got another word. Are you doing it for man, or are you doing it for me? Right. And I thought, okay. So I phoned everybody up and said, it's off. It's not happening. And that year, which was last year, that year was my year of where he wanted myself and my father, it was to be together. It was a Mary time of just sitting with my father. He was working out all my little problems, my character flaws, what I have, and the problems I was having, even family problems. And, you can't do God's work if your family's not right. You've got to sort these things out. And until you do that, you're not going to see the flow. You're not going to see that flow. And it was so obvious to me. And it was a real hard year. Last year, I can't tell you, there's so many things and tears and tantrums from me because it was hard. It was changing my character to be more humble like him. Because you have to be humble. And that's the important thing. Just that little, I can't believe that. That was just, oh, well, that's me. So I'm glad we sat at that chair first. And you called us here. So, yeah. So, yeah, that is so important to be humble. And, yeah. So it didn't happen. And then I got the word to do it again this year. And it was very different. Very different. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
You're almost done.
Almost done. So Highland Harvest happened again. The Green Welly, what I will say about the Green Welly is that I find it's not my garden. When you come to it, ones that haven't come to it, but if you come to it, there's something about the Green Welly. It's not mine, it's God's. And what I do is, he's my father, he's my boss, and I listen to what he says and what he wants me to do with it. And I do put on community events for the village, and I put on, some churches use it, And I also have Disabled Scotland. I have them coming once a year, and we invite whole groups of disabled adults from the Highlands, and they come and have a big barbecue. And again, they have that sense of that feeling of peace and joy, and it just seems to just feel that the Father touches everybody when they come in that gates. Yes, which is just wonderful. But what's next? I don't know. What's next is I just wait. I wait in the Father. Sometimes he answers you very quickly. Sometimes it's a long journey, and you just have to wait. But I always know he's been before me. He set it up. He has said to me, because at a stage I was concerned that, I'm not getting younger and I'm doing an awful lot of work in this garden centre. And I said to him, I do need people to help and I need resources. And he said, I will give you people and I will give you the resources. So this year, it's all just seemed to have happened. I've got chicken pens built, I've got a new fence up, and new people have come on board. And it's him. It's him. It's not me.
And it's those that you've asked.
Pardon?
Those that you have asked, those that have actually done the fencing and the pens. Did you ask them or did they just turn up?
They turned up.
They turned up. God.
I mean, I looked at my diary. I do a prayer diary because my memory's so bad. It's not any better. I just have ways of coping with it. And if you put, I hope I'm not talking too much, but so I've got ways of coping with it, and I have a prayer diary, and I look back in my prayer diary, and I get, did I really write that? And that has happened. Things that you've asked for have actually happened, and it's just, God is so good. He blesses you so much, but I can I can also look at myself and, be very critical sometimes. And he doesn't like that. He hates that. God hates that. And you get, I've had rows about that. And, put in my place. Do not be critical. Bless. Don't curse. Bless. That's something to remember. Always bless. Don't put down what you've got. Just keep blessing it. That's really important. Yeah.
Amen. Well, bless you, Lorna. And I think we should give God a huge, big hand clap. And what a treasure and precious person you are. And it's, it's so important to remember all of that. That we need to not just hear, but obey. And have things put right within our own family. Because remember God's order. He's first, family second, ministry third.
Yeah.
And we won't flow in our ministries if we're not at peace with one another. So it's bless you. That was just, yes, it just shows the graciousness of God and how patient He is with us. What an encouragement and an inspiration you are. And change your confession from my memory is still not good to my memory is improving.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
I have to do that every day.